So let's see. At the request of Matthew Rooks, let's talk about fight. Alright. We'll just do this the old-fashioned... That's not the old-fashioned way. The newfangled way. There we go. Alright. So right off the bat, when you set your attack spin up to 2 force plus 1 power each, that means you can have plus 2 power at will. Right? Like, that's very, very good. That's actually extremely good and very, very dangerous. So we're going to notice that, much like with Polar Knight I talked about previously, his printed power levels are made to offset that, with a couple exceptions being on attacks that are notably awkward in this case or expensive in this case. So this is clearly extremely strong because being able to set to have plus 2 power at will. Also, that's when you set your attack, meaning you can do it on attack or on defense. So if you happen to have a surprise EX that you can throw in response to what your opponent does, then you can come in and deal enough damage to stun just about anything you want, for the most part, because EX is a total of plus 3. Well, that's extremely strong. Yeesh. Alright, Exceed. When you exceed, put up 2 continuous boosts from your discard, hand, or gauge into play without paying their costs. And then when you set your attack, spin up to 3 force for plus 1 power each. That also says shuffle your discard pile. That's just in case you can't keep things in order, I guess. So you immediately get 2 continuous boosts, which means that you can confirm your next hit most easily, or more easily. Probably guarantee it, honestly. As long as you have at least one copy of Sweep Down, you can get plus 2 speed on top of something else. And then you can spin up to 3 force plus 1 power each. 3 is much bigger than, half again 2. In Exceed, 3 is a very important number for breakpoints, right? So Assault with plus 3 power stuns Sweep. Dive with plus 3 power stuns Focus. Sweep with plus 3 power stuns the World. That's also true of Sweep with plus 2 power, but regardless. Like, Sweep with plus 3 is 9 damage, which is almost a third of your life. That's terrifying. And then the breakpoints that matter for the other thresholds are 4 plus 3 is 7, which is over the guard breakpoint of 6. That's the big one. Alright, this is extremely powerful, and thanks to that when you exceed effects, you can get value out of it pretty much every single time you use it. So, both front and exceed ability, extremely strong. Which means we should expect garbage cards. Let's see what happens. 4 to 6. Okay. So 4 to 6 as a projectile range is a little bit awkward. It's not 3 to 6. It's 4 to 6. And it is very, very slow. Speed 1. Meaning, if the opponent has basically any movement at all, they're just going to dodge this. This only works as a hard read against cross, because it can gain guard, you will note. So, like, this can have 3, 6, or 9 guard on it. So you can hard read cross if you think they're going to play a cross and they can back up to range and you hit them. Which is, hard read cards are nifty, but they're not powerful, right? Or you use it just when the opponent is completely out of options, you have the pin against the wall. In which case it's nice, so it's a punish tool. The other viable case for this is just to trade against opponent projectiles, which I think is actually what this card is intended to do. This is a slow projectile. It is designed to crush fast projectiles, and actually, as long as you're willing to spend enough resources on it, it can trade even with most mid-speed projectiles, simply because it has 6 or 9 guard after you're in Exceed mode, which is an absurd amount of guard. So you don't have to worry about eating, Kendoken for 6 damage. You can just take it, dish it back. Because if you have 6 guard, you also have 7 power. Alright, it's not bad. It's not very good, right? Like, this has one role, which is it is a slow projectile. It is not a very good slow projectile. It has worse range than most of those do. So it's easy for people to get out of them. Does have very good payout. 5 printed power on this guy is nothing to sneeze at, and then hit at the top of your discard to your gauge means if you spend, for example, an Ultra as 2 force for plus 2 power, and you hit, then that Ultra goes to your gauge and you can refund it. You will notice this on a few of Fight's cards, by the way. He has that as actually a major theme, is that you want to be recycling your resources, getting stuff back into your gauge. This is, for those who have played the source material, akin to killing enemies to get the pickups that let you restore your resources. Alright. Speed Shell. +1 speed. On this guy, speed is great. Right? Speed lets you convert power into damage. After retreat 1. Okay, that's nice. Like, that looks like a safety tool, right? Like, the idea is like, okay, you can have a speed 8 grasp and you push 2 and retreat 1 and your grasp becomes cross. That's not bad. It's also not very good. Like, it's just not impressive. So, given how situational this is, and how the boost is, like, pretty mediocre at what it does, you know, he'd much rather have a boost like Akuma's hit, +1 speed hit add this to your gauge, which the god also has. We get to him later. This is not eating up very much power budget. Like, it's a tool. Usually it is a specific, like, answer tool. It's not a punish tool, but it can be a punish tool. So it's not bad. Hi, Byron. Alright, Explosive Shot. Speed 5, range 3 to 5, no movement. Okay, so it's a fast projectile. It's above curve from opening positions. And it has Ignore Armor, which is amazing. Keeping in mind how his character ability works. Hey, thanks for the subscription. No? Do I sound weird? Hey, thank you very much. Does anyone else have issues? Asking if I sound unusually weird, that is, not like the normal amount of weird. No? Alright, well, y'all keep me posted if I have any audio issues. So where was I? Above curve, ignores armor. That's pretty important. So they can cross out because it doesn't hit range 6, but they can't block because thanks to his character ability, this is going to do 4 or 5 damage if he wants it to. And once he's exceeded, this can also crush focus, although it's not super relevant at the ranges where it hits because it hits a 3 to 5, which is not, like, it's not important that it stuns focus, at least not to fight. It might be important to the opponent. So ignore armor, hit at the top of your discard to your gauge. Same as before, right? This is now a fast thing, so it's actually markedly better than the slow attack that has that effect, because this is a lot likelier to get the hit effect, so you can get extra value, or at least refund the value that you spent. Alright, thank you all for the feedback. This is an excellent card. EX, this card is completely unbeatable, right? Like, and then if you're in Exceed mode, this becomes devastating, and the EX becomes actually, you know, 7 power ignore armor at speed 6. It's literally nothing anybody can do about that. It's insane. That's not technically true, right? There's still Crusader's Oath and stuff like that. Who cares? It's amazing. What about the boost? What about the boost? Hit range 3 or greater, so that's range 3 plus. So range 3 or greater, plus 3 power. Okay, plus 3 power is good, but it's on a projectile. So he needs to have other projectiles that hit at 3 or greater for this to matter, and also then he's using a copy of Explosive Shot. This attack is so good, it's hard to imagine me boosting with it. Like, plus 3 power is nice, but if you boost this, you give the opponent a turn to come in, right? So you're just not going to be at range 3 unless they want to be at range 3, in which case they can probably beat whatever you throw. Boost is relevant. Attack is amazing. Like, this is essential. Power Jump. This is a flash kick. So this card shape is one which is meant, like, it beats sweep. That's really important. Unusual among flash kicks, this one also beats focus, even at range 1, because it has hit retreat 2 after push 1. Most cards would say, you know, hit push 1 after retreat 2. Or hit push, you know, 2 after retreat 1, something like that. This is a little bit weird because he moves when he hits you, and then afterwards he pushes you. So it's kind of janky in that regard. Make sure you read this correctly. 2 Printed Power. Garbage. 1 armor, 3 guard. Not actually that bad. Speed 3. Not actually that bad. This is a bad card, but, like, it's obviously serves a purpose, right? The obvious purpose, because it has 4 defense, is it counters assault. And then the second obvious purpose, because of these effects, is it beats sweep. And those are very useful functions for a card to have. Looking at this boost, advance retreat 2 if you do not move past the opponent, add this to your gauge. Oh. So this is movement, which doesn't cost him anything, right? It's move 2, and then instead of losing the card, it goes to your gauge, which he can use for force, or toward his exceed ability. So another way to use resources more than once. That's actually pretty important, I would say. So I think dash is the next most important thing that we have seen so far, at least. Not sure if it goes quite in the same tier as explosive shot, but it's definitely much better than electric charge. All right, retreating bolts. 3, 2, 4. Oh, that's a cute stat line. Wish I had a 1 down here, right, to finish the lineup. But it's not a very good stat line. +1 speed for each force you spent this turn. Okay, so realistically this is speed 6, or if he's in exceed mode, speed 7. And then before retreat 2. Before retreat 2 is important, and also pretty interesting, because it means unless your back is to the wall, this is not a range 3 attack. This is a range 1 attack. And at speed 6 or speed 7, it's either under or on curve. So, also since it only retreats 2, it's still in sweep range, and it's only going to do 4 or 5 power by default, which means it doesn't stun sweep. So this is all the makings of being a fast attack, right? It's a fast attack that actually beats focus because it retreats out of range, but doesn't stun much, doesn't do much damage. Pretty expensive too, and it doesn't have any of that. It doesn't have the refund effect that explosive shot has. So like you're actually spending resources and not getting a lot of value out of this. That said, this is a before movement, not a hit, which means it's going to happen even if you aren't in range. So you can use this at range like another copy of Cross, right? If you're at range 4 and your opponent strikes, you can go, oh, I spend a force to play retreating bolts, and now it's speed 5, so I'll retreat 2, and then your dive misses me. So it has a function. It has utility. It's not very powerful, but sometimes you need an extra copy of Cross, albeit a significantly worse copy of Cross, right? All right. Hey, welcome back. All right, let's see. Deadlock Boots, stun immunity. All right, that's important. On a character like this who can throw resources into getting extra power all the time, stun immunity is much like extra speed in that it helps you convert power into damage. So this is already really good. And the now advance retreat one is just, you know, a bonus. Like, it's just extra. It doesn't even need that for this to be good. Deadlock Boots are obviously great. Actually much better than retreating bolts. Retreating bolts is a situational thing. So we're going to put that alongside the power jump. And I would say probably even higher because of how important stun immunity is. So part of the, well, one thing that we'll find out in a minute here is how valuable is that stun immunity depends also on how much confirm he has. My confirm, I'm talking about the battle con term, so I apologize for using that. Let me try again. On how easily he can hit you, right? We have range 3 to 5, range 3, except really range 1, range 1 to 2, range 4 to 6. So far, we don't see anything that's covering a huge section of the board. We have a range band of 3 spaces or less. This is 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 1, 1, 2, right? We are about to get to cards that have much wider range bands, and because of those, especially because of Flamethrower, which I'm about to come to, I think stun immunity here is absolutely worth its weight. If he didn't have any cards that would let him consistently hit when he was stun immune, then he would be using this only with assaults. And that's not bad. Stun immune assault is good, but like it gets much less value if you can't combine it with character-specific cards. All right, Flamethrower. This is an ultra. You might notice it's got 2 other ultras. So this is actually itself an interesting piece of power budget. He has 3 ultras and 4 specials instead of 2 ultras and 5 specials. There are some characters like this. Fight is one of them. Dan is one of them. Dan Hibiki from Street Fighter. So it's a thing that we've used a few places. It's not unique, but it is pretty interesting and it is very unusual. With Fight, the reason for this is pretty obvious. He needs extra force. He's going to be spending force a lot. So he wants to be able to ditch ultras to generate 2 force whenever he wants. So he has an extra bank of force in his kit just by having more force than anybody else. Alright. Flamethrower. 145. Ignore guard. Okay, that's good. Ignore guard is great, actually. And then before, plus your 1 range for each force you spent. So on front side, this is going to default to being 1 to 3, 6, 5, ignore guard. So it's an on-curve ignore guard option, which is great. Like, at range 3, this doesn't lose to anything, as long as you initiate. And, you know, whenever I say that, I'm not accounting for EXs, I'm not accounting for character-specific answers, right? It's like, well, none of the normals beat this. It's an on-curve thing. It beats anything slower than it. It's great. So the other thing about this, once you exceed, this is range 1 to 4. That means even if you start at range 1, you catch cross if you have stun immunity. So I think this card specifically gives Deadlock Boots, like, it is a great way to use Deadlock Boots, as long as you can afford to spend both the gauge and the force to extend your Flamethrower out all the way. Because you're just going to catch them wherever they are, which is great. Alright, let's take a look at Explore. Now Advance Retreat 2. Hit, put the top 2 cards of your deck into your gauge. This is interesting. Put the top 2 cards of your deck into your gauge, not your discard pile. That means that you're not recycling. You are aggressively gaining resources at the cost of losing options. So that's interesting. The Advance Retreat 2 is, like, basically you're spending an Ultra as a move action, and then you're paying a force to get this hit effect, is kind of one way to look at it, right? It's like, well, you're just moving too, but also you have this hit effect if you want to play it that way. This is quite good, just like with stun immunity and with the character ability itself, right? How good this is depends on how well he can confirm those hits, how easily he can guarantee that he lands an attack. Since this attack itself is pretty reliable, it is not the best place for him to have this boost, because he'd rather have it be on a different attack so that he could play this attack and boost the other card. That said, it's quite good. It does have that interesting drawback of coming out of your deck, but that's a price you have to pay for being, like, very resource hungry, very aggressive. So, yeah, this is a really, really good card. I would actually still say it's not as important and not as powerful as Explosive Shot in general, because the thing about Explosive Shot is not only does it just never lose to anything, whereas, like, Flamethrower, if you're at close range, you do need to set it up with something. Explosive Shot, you're never going to play at close range. Explosive Shot refunds the resource you use to play it. Flamethrower is a huge expenditure with okay damage. But, like, both the attack and the boost are good, so that's non-trivial. We're going to slide this down. Where do I think Flamethrower falls here? So, like, it's an exceptionally good attack in that if you initiate with it, you pretty much can't lose to anything. That's not strictly true, of course, but, like, it's amazing. And the boost is quite good. Building gauge quickly also helps him get to his Exceed mode, although I don't think you'll usually see people boost this before he's Exceeded. I think they're likely to spin this, then use his When You Exceed effects to play it from his discard pile. Because I think when he exceeds, he's always going to want to play a speed boost, and then his second boost will be something that gives him resources, if possible. Or just +2 power. You know, one of the two. It's good. It's quite good, actually. But yeah, I still definitely rank it notably lower than Explosive Shot. Alright. Here's kind of the crown of the kid, honestly. These are the ultras that are actually not just good, but amazing. So, Lightning, Gun and Railgun. Hey, okay, thanks for the heads up, Pika. I'm not going to be done going over kits for a while, but I'll go over a handful and then I will look for fights. Alright, let's see. So Lightning Gun is interesting. 1 to 3, 2, 6, above curve, no movement, so it is a fast card. +1 power for each force you spent. So on front side, this is actually 6 power. In Exceed mode, that is 8 power. Above curve 8 power. That's amazing. My goodness, that is incredibly good. Flamethrower beats Boost Wars in the sense that if they're trying to be defensive, you still ignore guards, so as long as you're faster, you just win. This thing can be outboosted in terms of they can potentially tank it if they have enough defensive options and they're boosting things like defend or extra armor or whatever. But in terms of raw damage, it's obviously the better deal. Like, they're both 6 power if you spend 2 force, but this one goes to 7, this one goes to 8. That's pretty good. Arachnomorph, +1 speed, now advanced retreat 1. Alright, we already talked about how valuable speed boosts are. And then +1 speed and reposition means you can look at where you are and go, I have, you know, explosive shot and I'm at range 2. Now I'm at range 3 and I have above curve explosive shot, not just on curve explosive shot. So it, you know, it lets you bump yourself above the curve at whichever range works better for you, which is fantastic for confirming damage. It's a really good boost. You definitely can't afford to boost all the ultras because you need to be spending some of them as force. Where do I think this falls relative to Flamethrower? I think Lightning Gun is better, on the premise that Arachnomorph is much, much better than Explorb. Explorb is a payout, right? Or it's a reward, I guess, not really a payout. It gives you resources when you hit. Arachnomorph is making sure you can hit. And by the same token, the Lightning Gun is a better attack for landing than the Flamethrower, even though the Flamethrower is more unbeatable. And also hits at longer range once it's fully bumped up. So I would say Lightning Gun, it inches out Flamethrower. Still not as important as Explosive Shot, again, because Explosive Shot gains you resources. But it's closer because of Arachnomorph. Alright, and lastly, Railgun. 3 to 8. 7-5. So even at minimum range, this is on curve. And then it goes out to the end of the board. 7 printed power. Well, this thing's amazing. And then hit effect, the opponent has -1 armor for each force he spends. So it can cleave through defenses, at least the first few points of defense. Because it's either dealing 9 damage and the opponent has -2 armor, or 10 damage and the opponent has -3 armor, which normally isn't even going to matter. But, like, I guess if they tried to play a defend boost and then play a block, they lose those first 3 points of armor, and they have to spend a ton of force to not just die. This is exceptionally strong. It's 4 gauge, though. And this is on a character who's pretty liberal with his resources. Most likely, he will not be able to afford to take the time to save up for this. He's going to be spending this as force. He's going to be playing his other ultras, or using them as force, so that he can play Explosive Shot or just play normals on curve. Right. Moth Orb. Hit with the top card of your deck on your gauge for each force you spend this turn. Okay, so it starts out being just like Explorb, except it actually requires you to spend 2 force to get the same value, whereas Explorb is just value that you don't even have to spend on. And then if you are exceeded, it is, you know, put the top 3 cards of your deck in your gauge, but again, you have to pump it, you know, for all 3 force to get total value out of it. So it's good. It's not extraordinary. In fact, I would say it is. I would actually argue that it's much worse than Explorb. It's definitely not strictly worse because well, besides the movement effects, this one can get more value when you're exceeded. But the fact that Explorb gives you 2 cards even if you spend nothing is, I think, extremely important, because sometimes you just need to hold back your resources so that you can do a heavier payout later. So Railgun, I think, is pretty much always just going to be spent as force. I don't even think you boost this unless you just need Explorb and don't have Explorb, right? Like, this is 2 force. It is an extremely strong attack, but I think most of the time Fight is aggressive enough and needs to be fast-paced and high-tempo enough that he won't be able to save up for it. Like, you're certainly not going to choose to hold 4 gauge instead of exceeding. Your exceed is amazing. So, we'll drop that down the line. Alright. So I think on balance, no pun intended, that's probably about where I put Fight. Like, his ability is extremely strong, and you can see the impact of that across all of his power numbers except for Railgun. And to a lesser extent Electro Charge, which has 5 printed power. But, like, his most valuable tool is definitely Explosive Shot. Explorb is also extremely valuable, but I think Arachnomorph is actually more important because being fast is really, really good when you can throw +2 power on everything, or +3. And then for the same reason, I think Lightning Gun is the more reliable of these 2 ultras, even though Flamethrower is exceptional. Stun Immunity and then Dash are the valuable parts of these 2 cards. The attacks are tools that are situational. Not bad, but Not nearly as important as this boost, I think. And that's fight.